Pulse. You didn't know the vision and the mission of what the Peptide Pulse was. And I was like, it's about real life transformation. It's about bringing people that are in the industry to share the stories so that people can know these products, these things that are out there. They don't just change people's lives, they transform people's lives. She goes, depression is gone. My husband and I are closer than we were before. You know, I can be the mom. I'm starting to work again.
I thought there was sincere interest in making improvements and helping people. Nope. You had to say what we were telling you to say. You had to do what we were telling you to do.
And maybe don't listen to the cardiologist that's 300 pounds and overweight and tell
Unbelievable.
you that is the healthcare system we live in.
I think we have a lot of unlearning to do.
Where does science begin? The reason why the regulation is coming down so hard is, number one, safety. But there's so many people out there that aren't doing that. They're just pulling stuff out. They're wrapping labels around a bottle. They're just throwing it out there. That is going into a human being. I'm Dr. Adam Boender, and this is the Peptide Pulse. I'm so excited to have you here today. You know, really, the Peptide Pulse is about innovation, meeting science in the industry of peptides. It's real world stories, but I also want to bring in people that, I want to bring people in that a lot of times know the industry even better than myself. And for those of you that listen, whether you're like a direct consumer that's purchasing peptides or trying to figure out, where I source my peptides, where I get them, which you technically should be sourcing those peptides from a clinician, from a clinician's office, making sure that you're at least being careful, because there's a lot of stuff out there. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. But I'm bringing on a dear friend of mine. He is a dear friend. He's also my attorney. So that works too. So I always ask, Jeff, am I paying you for this time, or are we just talking as friends? I'm not quite sure yet. But Jeff Cohen, man, this man he has been, as a friend, just a rock for me. And as a company, has been a rock for what I do, honestly, because we are in a world when it comes to peptides where it is a very big gray area. And I don't say that lightly, but I kind of say it lightly too, because, gray is gray. Black is black, white is white, and gray is gray. So, Jeff, please share a little bit about yourself, but I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you, man. I'm glad you asked. Yeah. Perfect timing, right?
Yeah, right?
Right. We don't always meet in Orlando,
No, we don't.
We just happen to.
We're here.
Yeah. Short, I've been a healthcare business and regulatory lawyer for 39 years. But what a lot of people don't know about me, but maybe are learning a little bit more, is I've been a wellness guy since I was 18.
I just learned something new.
Yeah. The short story, I was just telling this. It's funny, when people start asking me questions, I start remembering things that I've forgotten. I got interested in wellness and then obsessed by it starting when I was 18 years old. What happened was I went to University of Arizona for college. It was relatively inexpensive, so I could save the money, and my parents gave me some money to go to school, and it was hot and it was far. I grew up in Miami, and I wanted
to get
hot,
away from family.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted hot, far, and something I could pay for. And I end up at University of Arizona. Well, very quickly, something happened that I didn't realize in the minute. It changed my life and changed the trajectory of my life, and is one of the reasons why I'm sitting here. I felt great. Now, I know that's like a weird thing to say, but I didn't realize.
Well, you were 18. You should feel great, right?
You'd think.
You're away from your parents for the first time in a warm environment.
Right,
college,
exactly. I'm on my
freedom.
own. Well, what I didn't know is that my whole life I did not feel well. I had asthma quite a bit. I ended up with asthma attacks pretty regularly and was in the hospital with them, and I had constant allergies. So I was the sick kid in class with the tissues all the time. It was very, very fucking embarrassing. And I was like, but I got used to it. So I just figured, well, that's life. I would play football, and my dad would stand on the sidelines if he came to practice. And I'd run a lap, and he'd give me my inhaler, take a puff, do another lap, take a puff, do another lap. And that's what life was. I mean, I never identified myself as, somebody who had a sickness or an illness or anything, because in my mind, sick kids were like kids with St. Jude's or something serious, so I would never have said I was a sick kid growing up. But when I was 18 living in Arizona and I had no asthma, no allergies, no problem, I realized I'd spent the first 18 years really bothered by my health.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad's a pharmacist, and he's a fantastic guy. He's a wonderful guy. I get to see him every weekend. He's 92. Wow. And he was a pharmacist, and he practiced until he was in his 80s. Well, it kind of explains why the treatments that were available to me were all medical. They were inhalers and injections and when I was in really a bad spot, epinephrine, and stuff like that. And I just didn't have any other treatments, no other thoughts available. But at 18, when I felt well for the first time in my life, I got interested in things like chiropractic, iridology. So I became super interested in, God, I wonder what the stuff that isn't spoken about and very visible, I wonder what's available that isn't. And then it was, I moved to Georgia and lived on a farm in Clarksville, Georgia for 6 months. And there were herbs everywhere. So I got an herb book and I started sampling herbs and trying different herbs for different health benefits. And the truth is that that kind of curiosity really has driven me a lot, and is a part of the reason why I began trying peptides about 8 years ago, and became so fascinated with them. I ended up representing everybody and experimenting on myself with so many of them.
Yeah, and I think that's incredible. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. What's always funny is when we record a podcast, we are usually sitting down a little bit before we get started.
Yeah.
And I think we went on like a 10-minute rant, and we're like, man, we need this stuff for the podcast. Let's get going. So, which we're going to bring it back in. I know all of you that are listening, you're like, wow, we wanted to hear that too. You're going to, because then that's where it comes to is, our passion is what drives us. You were saying earlier, in this industry that and again, I don't know if it's hundreds, if it's thousands. I mean, I know you represent a lot of people. I mean, Jeff, you're the voice on the legal side that I say, within this industry, helping with the regulations so that these products can actually get out to the people and transform the lives of those people. But even you say, man, when I meet a doctor, somebody that's moving into distribution, manufacturing of these products, most of them, and I don't even know what that percentage would be, but they have a life-changing story as to why they got there.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that made me love the space. It's one thing to serve a space. It's one thing to become an expert in a space. It's another thing altogether to fall in love with it and care so deeply and become committed to it. And I've been like that with HRT, with regenerative medicine, that I found 20 years ago, and now it's been peptides, because in part the stories that people tell me, I'll talk to these clients, and we talk to at least a new person every day. It's been that way for over a year, and I'll ask them, hey, what inspired you? Now, it could be a clinician or a franchisor that has clinical platforms, or it could be a distributor or a manufacturer or a 3PL or whatever it is. And I'll ask them, what's your story? And they'll tell me. And I would say at least once a week, I hear a story that's jaw-dropping. I find out on these calls exactly how these people's lives have been completely changed. And it's like, not a little. It transformational interaction with peptides that took people from having chronic fatigue to living a vibrant life, that took people from having chronic illness to living a vibrant life. And it sometimes, especially when it's parents talking about their children, it just brings tears to my eyes. It's extraordinary to me.
Well, there's a passion that's behind. I mean, that's the whole reason. And I was telling you, like, because I asked you to come on the Peptide Pulse. You didn't know the vision and the mission of what the Peptide Pulse was, and I was like, it's about real life transformation. It's about bringing people that are in the industry, even attorneys that are in the industry, to share the stories so that people can know, like, these products, these things that are out there, they don't just, the best way, they don't just change people's lives, they transform people's lives.
Yeah. I heard it the other day about regenerative medicine, stem cells, because I represent a bunch of regenerative medicine providers and producers all over the country. And this woman was telling me about her autistic child that received administration of stem cells and the transformation of that kid, you know. And aside from really touching me, it just makes me feel like this time of my life when peptides have become so prominent, it's like the perfect blending of the personal and professional for me. Yeah. It's funny how my life has kind of come full circle in the wellness sense. I mean, I was deeply affected by finding things in the wellness space on my own. And now I get to interact with people that are all about producing, distributing, dispensing, administering them, and changing lives of people every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, chiropractor by trade, I still remember the moment when I sat back and I was like, I need to get out of the office, out of the space. And this is just for me. I was like, I can be one-on-one or I can be one-to-many. And my passion for transforming lives, you're saying these stories. I have lots of stories. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to help practices implement modalities like this. And I've been in the regen space, stem cells, mesenchymal stem cells, exosomes, all these different things. And the thing I love about peptides is their specificity, even in a deeper level than where you go from even stem cells or exosomes and things like that. But I mean, and I'm going to have an episode with my sister on here, but I was actually talking to our producer about this, and it hit me. Like, when she sent me her, like, before and after picture, and she's like, oh, I'm so happy. She's like jumping up and down. There's a picture of her dancing, and she goes, oh, look at those legs, from where she was, from 220 pounds, depressed, sick, couldn't be the mom, affecting sex life, affecting all of these things. And that's October of 2024.
Yeah.
Literally just a few days ago, I'm calling her and I'm like, hey, would you want to give your testimony?
Wow.
Would you want to share this? She goes,
wow.
She goes, I just weighed myself. I'm 148. She goes, depression is gone. My husband and I are closer than we were before. I can be the mom. I'm starting to work again. I get goosebumps because it's like, that's my sister.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But the number of people that live, going back to your story, why do we live? We're not even talking about compliance yet, but it's just here. But why do we live in a truly in a country, in a healthcare system? And I put that in quotes because we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system where we just accept infirmity and
man,
sickness.
It's a great question, and it's a great invitation to be self-critical as a culture. I started really focusing on healthcare when I was 29 years old, and I was the lawyer for the Florida Medical Association, which is the statewide association of MDs and, to a lesser extent, DOs, but mostly MDs. And I remember what it was like back then to talk with a physician. There was no room to question anything. I was 29 years old. I'm getting ready to have a kid, my first kid. And I'm like, well, where do I have the kid? Do I vaccinate the kid? If it's a boy, do I circumcise the kid? So I had these questions, which I think are kind of normal parent questions. And at the time, not only could I not find anybody to talk about them with, nobody would talk about shit like that, because back then, if you even talk about the possibility of doing things differently than the way they're told that's the way it is, you'd risk your license, your medical staff privileges at a hospital, possibly a lawsuit. There were severe consequences and repercussions back then to any licensed clinician that questioned medical dogma, that had an opinion that varied at all, and people were thrown out of med school for raising questions and saying, I'm not sure I agree with that. And I remember, because one of the first cases that I got in private practice was a physician who was doing chelation therapy. And I'm like, what's that? I don't even know what that is. But he told me, that, hey, heavy metals have a real adverse health effect on people, and he has this special way of getting them out of people's bodies. And I remember talking to him, and I'm like, well, so what do you need? Well, the medical board was going to yank his license, so I had to get involved and deal with that. And then one guy in another state, in Illinois, same thing, for using ozone. It's quackery, he was told. That was the environment back then. You literally could get thrown out of med school or PA school or NP school or RN school. You can't even express curiosity about anything back then.
I always say, when I'll go speak and I say, I'll ask a group of physicians before I get up. I'll say, practice makes what? What do you think they say?
They would say perfect.
Right?
Right.
That's what practice makes perfect. I go, no, practice makes improvement. People become practitioners to practice.
Right.
But yet we live in such a dogmatic system. I still think today, in some aspects, there's some changes that are happening that we're not allowed to even question.
Right.
What we're doing. Then how do we advance medicine at all if we can't question
you remember COVID? It's like if you said, hey, I'm not so sure that what's being recommended is the best thing for COVID. Yeah. You were ostracized. The Federal Trade Commission would come after you. Horrible consequences that my clients receive. God forbid they should say that they had anything that they thought would improve COVID or cancer. Those were the two C words you couldn't say during COVID. And I thought, well, that's odd, because I thought there was sincere interest in making improvements and helping people. Nope. You had to say what we were telling you to say. You had to do what we were telling you to do. Hydrochloroquine is for horses, that kind of stuff. And I just thought, I hadn't seen that in that kind of amplified way like that. But COVID taught me, it's like, oh, we're not interested in what works. We're not interested in wellness. We're interested in something else. And of course, my brain, from being a lawyer for so long, it's always about money.
Yeah.
It's always about money. You want to control the dialogue? You want to control the science? You want to control the studies? Yeah, that's because there's an economic stakeholder who's able to manipulate that process. And now we have what? We got Marty McCary, who's a physician, the head of the FDA, who's a medical researcher, a medical journalist, a practicing physician, who publicly uses the word medical dogma and advocates for bringing truth into clinical studies and science and healthcare decisions. And he's the head of the FDA. I never thought I'd see something like that.
But then you have people pushing back like, oh, wait. But the way that I look at it, and I don't think a lot of people realize when you're talking about the research and this medical dogma, it's the fact that, and I wish more people realize this, but the research that all the doctors keep saying that they want to show to prove something, who do you think's doing the research?
Right.
It's the same company that's making the product.
Look, I represent clinical research sites, and yeah.
That's why I'm the peptide researcher, man. You got to get the real research out there.
It's there.
It's doctors that say, show me the research. So I hand them 150 articles on research on a certain product or multiple products. They're like, wait, no, I need American research. I'm like, wait a second. What are you really trying to get at here?
In wellness, every second counts. With Unify messaging, clinics connect with new leads instantly, turning inquiries into appointments faster than ever. Quick responses mean more patients and stronger growth. See how AI-powered speed-to-lead capabilities are helping wellness clinics thrive with Unify messaging. Visit us at unify360.com.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Confirmation bias.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And which is RFK Jr. is playing the role that he's playing, and people take his message and say, well, he's an anti-vaxxer. You know what? I've never spoken to him, and I haven't really read a lot of what he's written, but my impression is that he perceives, I think accurately, that there is corruption in science, that greed is tilting the process, the outcome, the recommendations, and we, Americans, are paying the price for it. And I think that's what he's attacking, and I think that's what he wants to rip off. And to the extent that he wants that, we need to support that because we need truth in science.
Yeah, and I don't, to me, my personal opinion, again, people can disagree. I don't think it's really, we tag and we title what we feel we want to hear or what we want to push. Like even the fact of anti-vax or anti-this, we're pushing those words. I don't think any of it is anti-anything. I think it's, let's have some truth and transparency.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
And that, I think, is the ultimate goal. So, yeah, we could go down a whole road on that one, but let's go into peptides.
Yeah.
Regulatory, where these are going. I mean, we both use peptides. I mean, I'm 62, you're 99. Look how good we look.
65.
Look how good
65, brother. Yeah.
Dude, amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, 65.
Fit, moving, going.
Yep. Yeah, I found Ipamorelin CJC 1295 about 8 years ago. And the guy it was part of a very expensive monthly package that he was selling. He's one of these guys that basically anything that's on the shelf that he makes money on, he's going to find a way to sell and you to buy. And I was aware of it, but I figured, well, I'll try anything.
Right.
So I did. And it was fun for about 2 years. And I learned this one very interesting lesson that some of the people that are listening to this are going to hate. You can't outpace a bad freaking diet. I was eating and drinking whatever I felt like, so I wasn't really moving the health measure needles very much. And I figure, listen, the more I spend every month, the more I augment with these exogenous things, I'm sure I'm going to be able to eat and drink whatever I want whenever I want. Fail. Solid fail. It's just crazy.
Well, there's no magic bullet.
No.
Even though we want there to be a magic bullet. Kind of like...
I listen, I'm a human being, so if I can find fast and easy and no deprivation involved, awesome, sign me up.
Everybody
I want
wants it.
that.
I mean, we live in, I always say that, we live in a microwave society. It's like, no, let's go. Hey, give it to me.
100%.
We want the result, but honestly, I found just in life in general, not just in health and wellness, and I mean, the things that take a little bit longer to get there,
I know.
They're going to last. They're going to last longer.
You know, it's a dirty little secret of human life that the recipe for great outcomes, relationships, health, wealth, business, all of it, discipline, deprivation, dedication. Now, I'm good with discipline, and I'm good with dedication. I don't like deprivation too much.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah.
That's why it's probably the hardest. So
for me, it was. But at some point, listen, when I did the 2-year experiment of just trying more and more things every month and not really moving the needle, I realized fine to try things, but it's not fine to not apply my intelligence to it.
Right. It's kind of like, what's the saying? Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
They always say, I say, no, knowledge is not power. It's actually the application of the knowledge that brings you the power.
Yeah.
It's like the $1 million idea. You know how much that's worth, right?
Right.
It's nothing. It's an
it's
idea.
Like I tell people, listen, if you get on a bus and it says Chicago on the front, where they say where they're going, and you end up in Chicago, don't get freaking upset that you end up in Chicago. Like, you can see where you're going based on your decisions every day.
Amen.
You know where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Heart attack, diabetes, you know where you're going.
And maybe
right?
don't listen to the cardiologist that's 300 pounds and overweight and tells
Unbelievable.
you
Unbelievable.
But that is the healthcare system we live in.
You know, I remember when I was starting testosterone. I was like 41 years old, and at the time my testosterone was I think 450, and I was really sleepy in the afternoon, like 2-3 o'clock. I couldn't figure it out. So a buddy of mine, actually a mentor of mine, said to me, "Let me check it out." And he checks it out, and he says, "Try this," and he gives me a 1 ml of testosterone. 200 milligrams. And for that whole week, I'm going, hey, I can stay up all night. And I just had plenty of energy that I didn't have before I found it. So, I mean, that was one of those aha moments. It's like, I guess my body's not going to get better at producing life-enhancing chemicals.
Well, as we age.
Yeah.
Cellular senescence, breakdown, cellular exhaustion. I mean, we can go deep into that one. That's a whole other podcast. I might need like 4 of them to go there, but it's true. It's like we have this deficiency. That's, again, what I love about peptides is it's not always that we have a lack of the peptides that we need. There's a lack of efficiency of those peptides.
Yeah.
To do the things that they need to do, whether it's something like CJC, ipamorelin. You know, I know that for your wife, I mean, we've done some stuff there to help her. And
I'm glad that you say that and that you're doing what you're doing, because there's a difference between peptides and precision peptides. You know, and it's one of the things that I notice about us as human beings. We think that the more we take and the longer we take it and the higher the dose, the better the outcome, because we're stupid. I mean, we're just stupid, and we're not clinicians, which is one of the reasons why when you talk about the granular details that you go into, not just on the podcast, but with me, I'm grateful to know you and to have somebody to interact with that I can be clinically led. I don't think it's a good idea for me to go on a website and buy really anything and self-administer and think and hope that it works out well.
It's living on hopium.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. So it's great that you're doing it, and it's great that your legacy is so committed to the clinician-led platform. I love that personally.
Yeah, and that's the goal. It's to real life experiences for clinicians to be able to see what's there. And to me, this is more than just showing like the life-changing experiences, because. And this is another thing that you mentioned. We need platforms. Where does science begin? Okay, science begins with anecdotal responses to certain things. Like, how did we know penicillin worked? We didn't know it worked. It's like somebody had to take something, a result happened, and because of that, it's like, well, let's look further into that thing now. How does A connect to B all the way to C? It starts with in a sense, if you think of the word testimony, everybody wants testimonies. What's the first part of it? It's called test. We have to test what is happening. And if we can test what's happening, we get a testimonial from that, we dive deeper into it, now we start getting sustained results over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Then clinical trials, and then the steps. And trust me, there is research. There are trials. Peptides are not just, it's not snake oil. It's not fake. You work with enough people, you know that there's validation in what we do. Yeah.
That said, one of the primary regulatory concerns, state and federal level, is safety. The job is safety. So you're kind of bending in the direction of efficacy, but I think the first thing that we need to focus on as a business sector is safety. It's like, well, I mean, I'll be honest and tell you, I got a phone call from a guy who was telling me he was making his shit in his home and sticking it in bottles in his home. And of course, I told him what he needed to hear, which is, dude, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Stop that right now. It's bullshit. But the point is that there needs to be some agreement on what quality is in the manufacturing process. I always say for these emerging businesses in the healthcare sector, emerging healthcare services or products, have to take leadership on defining quality. Because if you don't define quality for you, it's going to be defined at you by regulators that are very imprecise and tend to over-regulate. And I think that that's one of the things that's really needed in the industry, and one of the primary reasons behind the American Peptide Association.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up here in a little bit. I'm excited about this because in any industry, I mean, to be able to build validity, strength, and you said, I was moving towards efficacy, but to me, it's always efficacy, safety. I mean, when I talk about products, I mean, I had my own practice. If something is going into somebody, I mean, you got to take that seriously.
But you're in the manufacture and distribution business, so you get to control that, and you get to apply not just your intelligence to it and experience to it, but the fact that you're a licensed chiropractor and you're going to lose your ass or anybody else that if you deviate or don't do the right thing. So with you, it's a given, because you're going to make sure it's done right. And I can tell you, unfortunately, not everybody has that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, through the company, as we go through we've had multiple conversations where I've said, I don't want to wait until regulation changes. I'd rather know where is it heading so that things can be done
100%.
Ahead of time.
I love that.
To get there, because, man, I don't want to play catch up.
Right.
Who wants to?
Right.
Well, some people do, but I'd rather know. But again, it is safety. That's why, making sure that the products that are going into somebody have been validated, tested, sterility, endo, all of these things.
Exactly.
It's vitally important, because the reason why the regulation is coming down so hard is, number one, safety. But there's so many people out there that aren't doing that. They're just pulling stuff out. They're wrapping labels around a bottle. They're just throwing it out there. That is going into a human being. That's where I get upset.
That's exactly right. And it's the right thing to focus on at this time. This industry, any emerging technology or service, has essentially 3 phases of development. Phase 1, proliferation. That's a pre-regulatory environment where everybody's in it. We saw it with testosterone. We saw it with regenerative medicine. We saw it with IV hydration. We see it now with peptides. It's just an industry flooded with players. That's pre-regulatory. That goes on typically for 2 to 3 years at most. And during that 2 to 3 years, state and federal regulators sniff around, they're curious, they wonder things, and then they start to take action. Now we move into phase 2, which is contraction. Contraction happens because regulators do their job on safety. And they say, hey, wait a minute, manufacturing needs to have these processes in it. The APIs need to look this way. The finished product needs to look this way. The label needs to be this way. And they get very opinionated and very specific as they learn. And they're doing their job to ensure patient safety. And the more they do their job in phase 2 on patient safety, the more regulatory development that we see in states and federal. You see people say, you know what, I think I've had my run, and they exit the space. So we usually see about 30% shrinkage during phase 2.
Because if they really valued it, to me, they would be investing in it. We invest in what we value. If I'm going to invest in something that I know the direction that I want to go, it's offering something that can, to me, be life-changing to so many. I'm going to push through it.
That's because your mission, personally and as a company, is to change people's lives.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's mission.
Yeah.
And right or wrong, that's not everybody's mission. Listen, it makes sense to me if you're a nurse or you're a PA or an NP or you're an MD or DO or a podiatrist or a dentist or veterinarian or what have you. Your fascination and commitment and identity is to moving the needle in a good direction with your patient. You want to help people in a measurable way. That makes sense to me, so that people that are in this space that are using peptides as one of the tools in their arsenal, the tool doesn't lead them. They take clinical leadership, and it's one of the tools that they deploy to move the needle for their patient. That's a typical clinician mindset, which is one of the reasons why I believe clinically led platforms probably have more sustainability than other kinds of platforms out there. For example, consumers that just buy stuff, self-administer, and hope it goes well.
Yeah. So where do you see the industry going right now? I mean, we've talked about the American Peptide Association.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. We're bringing that in with the direction. So for clinicians, because I have a lot of clinicians, I have providers that watch, that want to hear. I'm scared to implement these, Jeff. Like, I'm scared I'm going to lose my license.
Right.
I'm scared that, I've got this 3-letter entity. They're going to walk in my door with guns a-blazing, and all of a sudden I'm done. Like,
it's the two questions I get from clinicians and clinical organizations, franchisors and stuff like that, is, am I going to go to jail and am I going to lose my license? Those are the two questions that they seem to have most. And the short answer, because the warning letters with the FDA, we deal with them, the cease and desist, we have those clients that we deal with them. The lawsuits by Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, we deal with them. The border stuff, getting stuck at the border, we deal with it. We have clients dealing with every piece of that. Some of them are in the API importation space, or they're manufacturer licensed or unlicensed. They could be a compound pharmacy, or they could be unlicensed, or they could be a distribution platform or a recipient of product that got targeted by the FDA or by pharma or by state regulator. Well, we deal with all of those things. One of the things that I notice from all of that is those two questions. Am I going to jail? Short answer, there is no evidence, because of what we deal with and what we see, to support the fear that you're going to jail. I haven't seen any criminal charge against any clinician using compounded peptides. Haven't seen it, not yet. Nor is there anything on the horizon that suggests to me that anybody with regulatory authority is interested in doing that. In fact, all of the regulatory stuff that I see is a huge respect for the doctor-patient relationship. Oregon got an FDA letter about RETA, and then a second FDA letter about CARG. And FDA said to the National Federation of Medical Boards, of which Oregon is part of it, hey, you should tell your physicians that they can't use this compounded RETA and compounded CARG. And Oregon's response was ballsy. They said, we respect the doctor-patient relationship, which was kind of the middle finger to the FDA on that issue. I was surprised to see it, but that is the kind of overarching regulatory presumption by state or federal regulators. Look, if you got a licensed clinician and they're interacting with a patient, let's kind of be as hands-off as we possibly can. So on that point, it looks like I don't see anything to suggest that you're going to jail because you're using compounded peptides. Nothing.
Yeah. I explained to a lot of practitioners, I'm like, have you ever given somebody a vitamin C infusion? And I relate this to the point of, being able to utilize these types of products, what you deem most necessary to try to get a result based on what your patient's needs are. That is that patient-doctor relationship. You have rights to figure out through the knowledge that you have. Now, again, we have to step back on, okay, what is the knowledge that you do have? Don't loosely be like, I'm just going to throw this at you and this at you, and hey, go eat some dirt over there. It's like, we need to know. There needs to be some education, some processes that go through, and the knowledge to literally say, hey, you know what? I know this could work for you because research supports X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Let's give it a try. I don't know if it will work, but would you like to try it?
And I think, from a deployment perspective, it suggests, hey, really button up your informed consents.
Yeah.
Really, let's dial them in, because certain products have different reactions. If you've ever done too much NAD or or too fast, whatever. It feels like a freaking heart attack. So it would probably be good to
elephant on
say
your
that.
chest.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling.
But you feel great afterwards.
Yeah, so button up your informed consents. Another thing that I tell clinicians is, if you're buying Ozempic and Wegovy, or you're suggesting that your patients use it, you don't really need to be worried about that, because it's an FDA-approved product. It's a branded product, and all of the risk associated with manufacturing and outcome of using it is with who? The manufacturers, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Fine. But when you're importing, using, deploying in any way a compounded product, you need to do more. You can't just assume that the quality is not your business. It is your business. It is, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're using a compounded peptide and your employee who's pissed off, or a competitor or a patient reports you and you get investigated, one of the presumptions that state and federal regulators come in with is, I bet you're using that shit just to make money.
Your reputation builds your practice. With Unify Reviews, automate review requests and respond effortlessly, turning every wellness experience into glowing 5-star ratings. Build trust, boost visibility, and grow your clinic's reputation with ease. Elevate your practice with Unify Reviews. Visit us at unify360.com.
So you better have quality metrics and quality representations from the source of that product, so that you can show the investigators or the plaintiff's lawyer, hey, listen, I didn't just buy this shit to make money. I made this, I made a buying decision because look at all of the quality indicators that they convinced me of, which are all in writing, to use the product in the first place.
Such as things like certificates of analysis that
Right.
actually show the purity of a product and the breakdowns. Yeah.
And what's their process? Their manufacturing. When do they sterilize? Do they sterilize after lyophilization, before lyophilization, both? I mean, you convince me, sell me on quality.
Yeah.
So if I'm a clinician, I'm gonna ask them to do it, and I'm gonna tell them I need that in writing. Send me an email, break it down for me, and then I'm gonna compare it to another one and another one, because quality has to matter to a clinician.
Absolutely. So with the I keep going back to the American Peptide. I'm excited about the American Peptide Association.
Me too.
Why are we creating this? Why is this being created?
You know what? The team that created the American IV Association, AVA, responded to the needs of people on the phone saying, I need this kind of help, I need this kind of guidance, I need this kind of resource to get in that business, and more importantly, to stay in the business. We're hearing the same thing in the peptide space.
Yeah.
And so because we've been there, done that with AVA, we said, obviously there's a need in the American Peptide Association in the peptide space. So let's provide them resources that they need to get into business, but more importantly, to stay in that business. That means define quality. That means get education, get certified as a peptide specialist. Excuse me. That means all kinds of things that get done in AVA to substantiate, support, legitimize, and protect an industry. Do the same thing for the peptide industry.
Yeah.
That's
And
what we're doing.
It's needed.
Yeah.
I mean, because we started this off, I mean, it is a gray area. It really is.
Right. We're pre-regulatory.
Yes. And which there's good things there. There's a lot of bad things there.
Right.
But we have to start coming together to figure out, because my own heart, I don't want this to go away.
No. And you know what? It's going to get over-regulated if the industry doesn't step up, create a community of quality around it, and lead themselves to the promised land, which is sustainable use of these products.
Yeah.
You know, I look, I tell clinicians all the time, you can't enjoy the benefit of what you're doing and not take any responsibility for it.
Yeah. It's where, and one of the things that I love about you and obviously working with me and what we do is it's always this, it's a risk benefit. There's layers of risk in anything.
And to your point about gray, I think that frustrates the shit out of people. They're like, how come I can't just get a yes or no answer from Jeff? How can I? And I talked to an FDA lawyer, and the FDA lawyer said it violates the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Or I talked to a pharmaceutical lawyer and says it violates 797 USP or violates 503A or 503B. It's like, here's the problem with it. In a pre-regulatory environment, like I said, first 2-3 years of any new product or treatment, it's a little bit like to a hammer, everything's a nail. So if you ask an FDA specialist a question, they're going to look to their FDA legal resources. Same thing with pharmacy. So really the best source, you need broader sources of information that can string together all of the data points about not just what the laws are, what's being done with those laws across a very broad span of geography. What's being done? And what about, for example, the med mal aspect? What about the licensure aspect issues? You really need a broad read of the ecosystem to be properly informed and make decisions. And in a pre-regulatory environment like we're in with peptides, those decisions are really options and risks of each option.
Yeah.
So if your Sherpa, your legal Sherpa, is doing their job, what they're doing is they're identifying the laws, what's being done with all of them across a broad spectrum, what are the options and what's the risk of each option, and which one, at the end of the day, do you like that you can sleep soundly with?
Yeah. And that's different for everybody.
Yes, it is. We represent very big influencers that are wonderful people who are absolutely as inspired as you are.
Yeah.
And they're making a different risk tolerance-based decision than somebody who might be a physician who's just got a clinic, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now on peptides. What's your favorite peptide?
Right now it's testosterone and ipamorelin.
Why?
Because it really supplants the fact that my body's ability to process blood sugar is not what it was. So it means that I would tend to gain weight or not get outcomes from going to the gym. I go to the gym 5 days a week, and I can tell you the outcomes now at my age are very different than they were when I was 40, when I didn't have to go to the gym 5 days a week.
And you said you're only 59? Is that right?
60, a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, so I listen, all of this stuff, IV hydration, regen, peptides, I don't choose to decline and degrade throughout the rest of my life. I don't believe that it's inevitable that the light of my candle is going to dim.
Amen.
And I take responsibility for it, and I'll guinea pig myself. Some things might not work out, some things will, but I intend to live as vibrantly, as loudly, as powerfully, as energized as I possibly can until I'm done with this life.
Live optimized, man. That's ultimately what it's about.
Right.
And we have more choice than I think most people truly understand.
100%. And I think it's cruel to deny people the right to do what is a natural human inclination, which is I want to thrive.
Yeah.
I think that's an innate human thing. We all have our challenges and we all have our times when we're very challenged. Mm. But that spirit of wanting to really be vibrant and really serve as many people as we can in our lives and really make an impact, I think it's innate. And I think that human spirit is going to far outstrip any challenge that we're facing today, including regulatory.
Amen. I don't even think I have anything else to say after that, man. That was like, that's the nail on the head right there.
Go.
That was
there you go.
Well, Jeff,
so it's great to be around. I mean, it's not just with you, but a whole community of people that are really dedicated to thriving at a time when it has never been more accessible. You're not going to go to jail because you're talking about peptides or using them. You're not going to use your license because you're talking about peptides or using them for your patients. That's not true 30 years ago,
Yeah.
39 years ago. It wasn't true. And now that we've got clinicians like you, manufacturers like you that are committed to quality and changing people's lives, and an environment that includes leaders like RFK Jr. and Marty McCary, who are committed to truth and science and to trying to separate the corruption or the greed that infuses that space, it just bodes well for us. I think that the future is incredibly bright in wellness. I think it's just going to get more accessible by more and more people. I think we have a lot of unlearning to do because there's a lot of stupid beliefs out there. I remember we went through a time when I was growing up, you should be eating pasta every night. It's really healthy. And we've been through such bullshit in our culture as it relates to food and drugs. We have a lot of unlearning to do. 75% of the commercials on TV are pharmaceutical companies that try to convince us that we're sick and we need this particular medication. We then go to very stressed out, very overburdened medical professionals and try to convince them to give it to us.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We're crazy in this culture right now.
I need it. Do you? Do you? I don't know. Here you go. That is what we have.
Yeah, I know.
Man. Jeff, thank you so much. I mean, every time that we get to sit down and have time together, it's an honor for me. I always enjoy our conversations, but thank you for coming on to the Peptide Pulse, sharing your passion, your knowledge, your expertise. I know that it's transformational for me. I'm sure it's transformational for others. But yes, thank you so much.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Adam Boender. This is the Peptide Pulse. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you at the next one.